day mga kabayan, I'm Jerilyn Ramos, your beautiful anchor for today. Reporting for Newsmon, Newscon, News nating lahat. Just came in mga kabayan. Encomienda system during Spanish period was granted and abused by encomienderos. Here's reporter Bien to give us the news. Bien?
Preview.
Thank you, Jerilyn. As was said, when the Spaniards came to the Philippines, the concept on encomienda was introduced. This system grants the encomenderos people who serve the crown to debar their encomendas from external attacks, to maintain peace and order within, also to support the missionaries. But kabayan, did you know that the systems turned to abuse of power by the encomenderos? The royal lands grants became the lands grants to few powerful landlords. The native who cultivated the land's freedom and were transformed to mere tenants.
Most people talaga who have powers tend to abuse the system most of the time, ano? But wait, Bien, what was the challenge they faced during those times?
Well, Jerlyn, the challenge was really abuse of the system. The natives of those areas took more tillers working for a share of crops. They were not even given a chance to have rights to those lands. And you can see it, Jerlyn, that the encomenderos clearly took advantage of the encomienda system. The really abusive encomenderos collected from more tributes that became land rentals, so that really challenge that the abuse of the system is not the following through. Back to you.
Oh, I see, Bien. Thank you for your news. Now, mga kabayan, here's another report from Yadi regarding about the agrarian reform on the American period. Yadi?
Preview.
Yes, Jerlyn, on November 6, 1902, the Land of Registration Act was established and generally called Torrens System. Torrens System is a land registration system where you get to have a Torrens title. Torrens title is a conclusive against third parties, including the government. So mga kabayan, a holder of Torrens title is guaranteed that his or her title cannot be lost, attacked, questioned, or taken away by prescription of law.
So does that mean during those times, everyone who owns a land will hold a clear document of title certificated by the government?
Yes, Jerlyn, the reason why is because during those time, it was believed to be the most effective measure to guarantee the integrity of land titles. And syempre mga kabayan, to protect their properties once the claim of ownership is established and organized. Kaya mga kabayan, in this time, make sure you have your properties legally registered and have your documents so that you and your properties can be protected.
May I ask, Yadi, what are some of the significant legislation enacted during the American period?
Well, Jerlyn, two of those are the Public Land Act of 1903, wherein they introduced the homestead system, and there is also the Tenancy Act of 1933, wherein they regulated relationship between landowners and tenants of rice and sugarcane lands by 50-50 sharing.
Alright then, thank you Yadi for bringing us the news. Okay mga kabayan, another news came in and Lady is here to deliver us the news. Lady?
Preview.
Thanks, Jerilyn. Mga kabayan, while the Philippines was under the Japanese occupation, Japanese militaries began attacking the country and asserting their dominance. Inflation has reached frightening levels with the cost of foods, medications, and other essentials began to climb. This is why the Japanese insisted on taking farmers' land and converting them to peasants and working tenant farmers on large estates.
So in response to the Japanese military's operation, the Filipino farmers formed in a group against the Japanese?
Yes, Jerilyn. The group's name is Hukbalhap, which stands for Hukbo ng Bayan Laban sa Hapon. Despite being communist guerrillas, they seek to block and remove all Japanese people's actions in all of what they have stolen from our country's wealth. As the war continues, One of the Hukbalahap's hidden tactics is to teach children about political and military theory based on the communist group's knowledge against the government. One of the group's wrongdoings or issues was the forced confiscation of the rich people's land. It is their hidden agenda for the farmers' livelihood. According to one of the American soldiers, some Hukbalahaps are torturing ordinary people and stealing their belongings. As the war came to an end, the Philippine Constabulary disarmed and arrested some Hukbalahaps members. It was a long battle, and the government found it difficult to put an end to the rebellion. As a result, they have made aggressive plans. Landlords were able to reclaim their lands from the Hukbalahap at the end of the conflict with the support of military police and the civilian guards. Back to you, Geraldine.
Totoo ngayong kasabihan na the most important thing is to pay attention to what is being stated. Anyways, mga kabayan, let's go to agrarian reforms done by the elected presidents through time. Let's start with Kabayan Janmoy.
Preview.
Good day sa iyo, Geraldine, at sa ating mga kabayan na nanonood ngayon. Mga kabayan, during President Manuel Roxas' time in position, Republic Act No. 34 was enacted to establish a 70-30 sharing arrangement between tenants and landlords. The 70% of the harvest will go to the person who shouldered the expenses for planting, harvesting for the work animals. It also reduced the interest of landowners' loans to tenants at not more than 6%, while the Republic Act No. 55 is to provide a more effective safeguard against arbitrary ejectment of tenants.
Are there any challenges that occurred during his time, Janmay?
Of course, Geraldine. One of them is when President Roxas negotiated for the purchase of 8,000 hectares of lands in Batangas owned by Ayala Zobel family. These were sold to landless farmers. However, due to lack of support facilities, these farmers were forced to resell their lands to the landowning class. This failure gave basis to doubt the real meaning of land reform program. Agrarian reform program inherent loopholes in the law. Strong landowner resistance, weak farmers organizations, and the continuing espousal by the new People's Army of its own agrarian revolution combined to make the government agrarian reform program only partially successful in breaking up land monopoly.
Is that the reason why during his time poverty is still pronounced in many rural areas?
Yes, Geraldine. The rise of agrarian reform movement has significantly contributed to the partial success of the government's agrarian reform program. But the government has not been able to tap the full potential of this movement to push further, faster, and more meaningful agrarian reform.
Now we know. Thank you, Mike. Mga kabayan, let's also hear again from reporter Bien to give us an idea about Elpidio Quirino's time. Reporter Bien, paso.
Preview.
Salamat, Jerilyn. Mga kabayan, during the President Quirino's times of position, they enacted the Executive Order No. 355, wherein they replaced the National Land Settlement Administration with Land Settlement Development Corporation, or LASEDECO, which takes over the responsibilities of agricultural machineries, equipment, corporation, and rice and corn production and administration for LASEDECO to facilitate the acquisition, settlement, and cultivation of agricultural lands. They shall be the following powers, duties, and functions, as well to provide the farm ownership opportunities to tenants, farmers, and small farmers from urban areas, graduates of agricultural schools and college, trainees, have completed the required military training, veterans and members of guerrilla organization, and other persons as the board directors may be determined. However, mga kabayan, due to limited post-war resources, the program was not successful.
Thanks, Bien, for giving this information. Mga kabayan, here's a day to report agrarian reform during President Ramon Magsaysay's time in position. Jadi,
Preview.
Yes, Jerlene, in his first State of the Nation address, Ramon Magsaysay announced that agriculture would be his administration. He launched projects to improve agriculture and empower rural communities. His administration pursued an aggressive land resettlement program and provided assistance to boost the productivity of small farmers.
What are the enacted laws during his time, Yadi?
During President Magsaysay time laws enacted were Republic Act No. 1160 of 1954. This was to abolish the Lasedeco and establish the National Resettlement and Rehabilitation Administration, or NARA, to resettle dissidents and landless farmers. It was particularly aimed at rebel returnees, providing homelands and farmland in Palawan and Mindanao. Also, Republic Act No. 1400 Land Reform Act of 1955, this is where to created the Land Tenure Administration, or LTA, which was responsible for the acquisition and distribution of large tenant rice or corn lands, over 200 hectares for individuals and 600 hectares for corporation. And one of the most helpful was Republic Act No. 82, wherein they provided small farmers and shared tenant loans with low interest rates of 6 to 8%. This will give small farmers and tenants a chance to have a good start.
Those are good and helpful laws, Yadi. Thank you for giving us that report. Sad to say mga kabayan, but I have to go, but don't worry mga kabayan. Here's Dana to give you updates and information about the Agrarian Reforms Philippine President time. Dana?
Thank you, Geraldine. Hi mga kabayan! I'll be your anchor for the rest of the news. I am Dana Paula Sanggalang, and I'll be here to give you a news and updates about agrarian reforms. Let's get started with Lady. Lady, take it away!
Preview.
Thank you, Dana. Mga kabayan, during the term of President Diosdado Macapagal, Republic Act No. 3844 or the Agricultural Land Reform Code was enacted. This is to abolish the shared tenancy, institutionalize leasehold, set retention limit at 75 hectares, invested rights of preemption and redemption for tenant farmers, provided for administrative machinery for implementation, institutionalized a judicial system of agrarian cases, incorporated extension, marketing, and supervised credit system of services of farmer beneficiaries. This Republic Act was hailed as one that would emancipate Filipino farmers from the bondage of tenancy. That's all. Back to you, Dana.
Mga kabayan, let's go back in time and see what happened during the presidency of our former President Ferdinand E. Marcos. Here's John Mike to give us the details. Mike?
Preview.
Yes, Dana. The Proclamation number 1081 on September 21, 1972 assured the period of the new society. 5 days after the proclamation of martial law, the entire country was proclaimed a land reform area and simultaneously, the Agrarian Reform Program was declared. Mga kabayan, here are some of enacted laws in President Marcos' term. Republic Act No. 6389, Code of Agrarian Reform, and RA No. 6390 of 1971. These RAs created the Department of Agrarian Reform and the Agrarian Reform Special Account Fund. It strengthened the position of farmers and expanded the scope of agrarian reform. Presidential Decree No. 2 of 1972. They declared the country under Land Reform Program. It enjoined all agencies and offices of the government to extend full cooperation and assistance to the DAR. It also activated the Agrarian Reform Coordinating Council. Mga kabayan, last of their enacted law was Presidential Decree No. 27 of 1972. This restricted land reform scope to tenanted rice corn lands and set the retention limit 7 hectares.
Wow, somehow there are many enacted law during his term. If you don't mind, Mike, can you tell us the challenges of President Marcos faced during his term?
It is unavoidable that there will be a problem in everything we do because we believe we are not perfect and thus avoid experiencing it. Former President Marcos has continued to describe land reform as the cornerstone of the new society he has promised, but he has been hesitant to force a takeover of small things owned by absentee middle-class landowners. Smallholders now control more than 60% of the land that was promised to tillers in the first place. President Marcos is responsible for the majority of the delays and qualifications in southern Luzon. Mga kabayan, change should initially be gradual, piecemeal with the big estates being split up first and the minor holdings being saved until last. Then, he issued a decree that appeared to open the door to exemption for absentee landowners who could establish that they had no other source of income. So this is resulted to piecemeal approach and the prospect of exemptions. The owner had time and motive to backdate their titles and illegally distribute their assets to relatives, hoping that the loopholes that appear to develop would eventually be enough to avoid abuses in the future.
Oh, I see. Well, thank you so much for your report, Mike. Mga kabayan, when President Fidel V. Ramos formally took over in 1992, his administration came face to face with publics who have lost in confidence in the Agrarian Reform Program. His administration committed to the vision, fairer, faster, and more meaningful implementation of the Agrarian Reform Program. Here's Bien to give us the details.
Preview.
Thanks, Dana. There are also enacted laws during his time. Some of them are Republic Act No. 7881 and Republic Act No. 7905 in 1995, wherein they amended certain provision of RA 6657 and exempted fish ponds and funds from coverage area of CARF and strengthened the implementation of CARF. And also mga kabayan, the Republic Act No. 8532 in 1998, Agrarian Different Fund Bill. This is when the provided adds additional 50 billion pesos of CARF and extended the implementation in another 10 years. Mga kabayan, every time I hear the word funded, that somehow gives me a smile. Ano po? Because during those time, these enacted laws are very helpful to our farmers.
Kaya lang Bien, what was the challenges or difficulty that they ran into? Because obviously, there would be a problem that they caused, especially that they implemented so many laws for the agrarian reform. Bien?
Well done. Under the administration of Fidel B. Ramos, many enterprising complained about the administration's slowness in purchasing and distributing privately owned land. Critics claims that this is due to the acquisition of lands and the more emphasis was placed on public lands and rice cornfield, and failures to compel installation of some farmers beneficiaries awarded lands in the source of concerns of this administration.
Thank you, Bien. Mga kabayan, era para sa mahirap. This was the battle cry that endeared President Joseph Estrada and made him very popular during the 1998 presidential election. Let's see if his actions have been really for the poor. Yadi, pasok!
Preview.
Hello mga kabayan, during President Erap administration, President Estrada launched the Magbalikat para sa kaunlarang agraryo or magsasaka. The DAR forged into joint ventures with private investors into agrarian sector to make FBs competitive. That is the reason why the Executive Order No. 151/1999 Farmers Trust Fund was enacted. This allowed the voluntary consolidation of small farm operation into medium and large-scale integrated enterprise that can access long-term capitals. According to the administration, their top priorities include poverty reduction, food security, global competitiveness, and farmer empowerment, necessitating the development of new institutional structures and procedures that will allow private sector investment in agriculture. The program will promote, authorize, and support the voluntary consideration of small-case agricultural land holdings into medium and large-scale farm enterprises.
Despite all of that, the administration encountered challenges that resulted in landowners who have not been paid or not been compensated in time. The Estrada administration was short-lived because the masses who put him into office demanded for his ouster. Am I right, Yadi?
Yes, Dana, that's the reason why kung bakit he only had his term for 2 years, because he was impeached. That's when Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, who was the vice president at that time, became president because she was the next in rank to Estrada.
You know what, mga kabayan? Speaking of Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, let's have your lady to give us information during President Jima's term and what are the things she have done for agrarian reform. Lady!
Preview.
Thank you, Dana. Mga kabayan, the Agrarian Reform Program under the Arroyo administration is anchored on the vision to make the countryside economically viable for the Filipino family by building partnership and promoting social equity and new economic opportunities towards lasting peace and sustainable rural development. And ito mga kabayan, ang iba pa sa mga pinatutupad ni President GMA during her term. Land tenure improvement, provision of support services, infrastructure projects, Kalahi Arzon, and agrarian justice. These are the things that help improve and protected our farmers.
Lady, that may sound good at all, but there was any obstacle that you encountered during implementation on this?
Of course, there is, Dana. Due to procedural unresponsiveness, the clearing of accomplishment was estimated to be around 80% of the total land for redistribution. Without a choice, Arroyo and her congressional allies had to extend the program. Another issue about its administration is that the Republic Act 9700, also known as Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program Extension, with reforms is regarded as the funding figure for the most expensive land reform in Philippine history. No mga kabayan, that's a really lot of money. The Carper Bill called for an additional 150 billion in funding for the next 5 years. As a result, while the Agrarian Reform Program's major purpose is to aggressively distribute public land and to widely deploy voluntary sales and offers at smaller farm size levels. The transfer of land to larger farm holdings has risen. That's the only news I have for today, Dana. Back to you.
Thank you, lady. And for our last news of the day, a news about President Benigno Aquino III, who vowed during of his 2012 State of the Nation address that he would complete before the end of his term. The Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program, or CARPS, is the centerpiece program of the administration of his late mother, President Corazon Aquino. To give us that report, here's John Mike. Mike?
Preview.
Yes, Dana, mga kabayan, under President Aquino III's administration, the Agrarian Reform Community, Connectivity and Economic Support Services project was created to contribute to the overall goal of rural poverty reduction, especially in agrarian reform areas. According to the Save Agrarian Reform Alliance, a national coalition of farmers group, the implementation of land reform under Benigno S. Aquino was the worst since 1988. It is said as the poorest performance in land distribution. 2 years left and the agrarian reform program will expire, and it is said that there is a remaining bulk of 1 million hectares of agricultural land that will likely fail to be distributed by the government, which includes land holding controlled by the elites in the Philippines. It includes the Hacienda Luisita that is owned by his family. The government fails to protect respect and fulfill their right to adequate food since there is no sign of them taking the land distribution seriously. But farmer leaders have faith that there is still a chance for the administration to turn the wheel around and clear their reputation of being the worst and reformer. That's all I have for today, mga kabayan. Back to you, Dana.
Thank you so much, Mike. And that's all for today, mga kabayan. Thank you for believing us to bring you honest and facts news that will certainly give you more knowledge about our Philippine history. See you next time for more. Here's on News Mo, News Ko, News Nating Lahat. Bye mga kabayan!